You're listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower on WRES 100.7 FM in Asheville. Listen up and get tapped into local important resources, information, and topics. Learn more about the topics of today's show at buncombecounty.org. Okay, it's time to get tapped in.
Hello, and greetings to everyone who is listening to my voice. This is Tapped In. I don't have my coffee cups. I know that sounds awful. And I am one of your hosts, ZaKiya Rogers.
And I'm Leonard Jones.
Leonard and I come to you from the Communications and Public Engagement Department of Buncombe County. And we actually do wear capes.
Joining us today is Alex McKnight, Buncombe County's Public Safety Communications Manager.
Business manager.
As well as Rita Sneider, Executive Director of Our Voice, along with Laural Friesland, Development and Communications Coordinator of Our Voice. Today we'll be diving into the important topics of Public Safety Telecommunication Week and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Welcome, Alex, Rita, and Laural.
Thank you.
All right, so just so our listeners can know who they're talking to, just tell us a little bit about yourself. It doesn't have to be work related. Just, name who you are, what you do. And do you garden or something like that? It is April.
Oh, wow. Starting with me?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, speak.
Sure. So my name is Alex McKnight. As Leonard said, I'm the Business Manager for Public Safety Communications, formerly known as 911. Currently, I'm also Interim Director for 911 as well. She's something special.
How long have you been at Asheville?
I've been in Asheville for 12 years, been with the county for 12 years.
Awesome.
I've worked in 911, I've worked for Health and Human Services and Emergency Services as well.
Awesome. Okay, Laural?
Hey, I'm Laural Friesland. I am the Development and Communications Coordinator at Our Voice. This is actually my third day on the job. I'm here to learn from our Executive Director and get to know new folks in our community.
Awesome.
I've been in Asheville for 2.5 years. I moved here from Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And in my free time, I like to hike and garden and do yoga and all that.
You went from the sea to the mountains. Wow.
Yep.
All right, Rita.
I'm Rita Sneider-Cotter. I use she, her pronouns, and I have been with Our Voice since 21. I started as a volunteer advocate on our crisis line, and then became program director, and then less than a year later became executive director. So it was a little bit of a roller coaster, but so grateful to be at this organization. We're celebrating our 50th birthday this year, so it has such a long history in our community. I feel really grateful to be here. I moved to Asheville in 2020 from Key West, and I have 2 little boys, 6 and 3. So we love Asheville. It's a great community.
Yeah, and you said 50th anniversary of Our Voice, and we all know that 1974 is when women got financial rights, when they were able to open up bank accounts and things of that nature.
Cards.
Yeah, and credit cards and rent and put things in their name. So we have a lot of 50ths this year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's how apropos that those things are going together. Okay, so let's just jump on up into this. Can you tell our listeners about the significance of the Public Safety Telecommunicator Week? That's a big
It's a mouthful,
word.
right? Yeah. That's why I like 911 better. So 911, Telecommunicator Appreciation Week started, I want to say, a number of decades ago. And it was to just bring awareness to 911 staff across the nation who are typically out of sight, out of mind. People don't know what we do, so just bringing their awareness and appreciation to them.
Okay.
So I see also you had mentioned around 911. So how do 911 dispatchers contribute to the emergency response effort?
Sure. So we like to say we're the first responders. We get the initial call. We determine based off the call what resources need to go to that call to handle that situation, and we coordinate those other resources, being police, fire, medical, emergency management, fire marshal, you name it, anything in public safety, we coordinate.
Okay, so was it Public Safety 911 week, or when did it make the change to telecommunicator?
So Buncombe County, previously 911 was a part of Emergency Services Department. But with the addition of new technology, back in the day, if there was if there was a car crash, someone just called you on their phone. Now we have the actual car calling you. Some situations with technology increasing, OnStar, different things.
Oh, wow.
Text to 911, video to 911. We do more than just 911. So when 911 became its own department, they changed the name to Public Safety Communications.
Wow, so probably in 20 years, there'll just be the holograph there.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I also got a follow-up question. I know with the county, there was a request to get more employees to work in the 911. Is that still the current situation with the county?
Sure. So as a result of the pandemic, as a result of multiple waves of the Great Resignation, all the different things, as a result of our merger, we handle all of 911 in Buncombe County now.
Mm-hmm.
We have been experiencing a great staffing crisis for the past 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're on our way to solving that crisis. We hope that by the summer we'll be out of it. But if you know anybody, send them our way.
Will do. Okay, so we're gonna switch over to Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Shifting gears over there, why is it important to raise awareness about sexual violence right now?
Yeah, so we know that there's a lot of stigma around sexual violence. Folks don't want to talk about it, and we also know that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced sexual violence. We don't even have good data on our non-binary or trans neighbors, but we have reason to believe that it's probably at pretty high rates, because we know that because of systems of oppression, folks are more vulnerable if they experience transphobia. And so we really want to make sure that folks understand what sexual violence in our community really looks like, and don't feel so alone, because often that's what keeps people in pain, is feeling isolated or feeling like they're the only ones going through it.
And I want to make sure I say this, that those are just the numbers that are reported. That's not like we're going out and getting every single person. Those are just the numbers that are reported, so it could be higher.
That's true. Although these are the numbers that are reported through a lot of surveys. So these are not the numbers of reported to law enforcement.
Okay.
And so that's an important thing too, as we're talking about the importance of 911, because we're so grateful for 911 dispatch. And only 20% of survivors of sexual violence will access the criminal justice system. So there are so many other ways to find healing too.
I think there's so many stigmas, as you were saying.
Absolutely.
All right, Lena, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just wondering, you had mentioned that for community to know what sexual violence look like. Can you give us some examples of what exactly did that entail?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we actually, when the U.S. government does a survey every 2 years of our teen attitudes towards sexual violence, and we have found that a record number of teen girls are experiencing sexual violence right now. There's a lot of questioning why. Did the pandemic play a role in this? So we don't necessarily know all the reasons, but we do know that teens are experiencing sexual violence at an incredibly high rate right now. We also know that teens are experiencing strangulation and sexual violence at really high rates right now. And that is often because they're watching things that have strangulation in them and thinking that that's a normal thing, and it's really dangerous. So that's one area, but sexual violence can look all kinds of different ways. We know that it's often not the stranger, right? It's not somebody in a van that we need to be worried about. It's the people around us, unfortunately. One of the things that Our Voice is really committed to, knowing that Hushville is such a town with so many breweries and so many fun places to go, is that predators often are using folks drinking alcohol willingly to prey on them too. And so we work with breweries across the community to make sure that they can get access to training, to be good bystanders, and also think through how to make sure that their bars are safe.
Yeah, I know that they were coming up with some code words and things of that nature, which I thought was really, really cool. I think one of the things people often forget about is that, predators they just look for a person that they're going to victimize. It's not about how you wore your hair that day.
Absolutely
It's nothing that you've done.
Nope.
And so a lot of times survivors will blame themselves and say, oh, was it because I had this on? No, there have been people fully dressed in turtlenecks and jogging suits that have been assaulted. Absolutely. It is about if that person can violate your boundaries and take power and control over you at that moment.
It's that power and control.
Mhm.
And realistically, you should be able to walk down the street in as little as you want, right? Like there might be other consequences that Alex might get pulled into if you're not wearing enough clothes, but no one should touch you without your consent. That's it.
And and that's so important because I think a lot of it, and this is just ZaKiya and ZaKiya's mind. I think a lot of that comes from is that we don't establish consent with our children when they're younger.
100%.
It's like go give your grandmother a hug. It's not like candy or that uncle. He has you on your lap and you feel uncomfortable, and like your mama come get you, but they never say anything. And or people will just come up and be like, oh, you're pretty, and touch your face. And so for so long we're not taught that our body is ours. So when we get in these situations, we don't know how to tell someone no.
Or feel like we have the power to.
The power
like our
to.
bodies don't belong to us; they belong to other people who have more power.
And that and all those ideas, and especially with the climate today, with women's rights being jeopardized, and also people who are transgender, non-binary rights being jeopardized. I think a lot of people are feeling, what part of me do I own?
Right.
And how do I protect myself? And so that's a lot of, I think a lot of advocates do a good job with telling folks, this is your body, but we need to start as soon as they can give out a hug. If you don't want to, because my daughter will block you.
That's awesome. Well done, Mama.
So, but it does. We need to retrain society.
Absolutely, and we also need to normalize asking for consent, and that consent is not the absence of a no, right? So we talk about enthusiastic consent, knowing consent. You are saying a really excited yes to something specific, and you also get to change your mind. Right? And how do we normalize that conversation? Because we haven't been taught, like, I don't think any of us at this table were taught that in school, right? We weren't talking about that. And in fact, when I go in and talk to teachers or adults that work with kids and I talk about sexual violence, one of the first questions if a kid comes and talks to me about something not feeling good is saying, did it feel good before, during, and after? And if it didn't, at what point, why did it not feel good? And let's talk about that it should in fact feel good before, during, and after. And it might not be that a crime was committed, but we need to talk about what healthy sexuality looks like too.
And I think that's a great opportunity for teachers to become more educated parents. Because we gotta think about our parents did not have the tools that we have now. We have so many more things. So including 911. I don't ever remember my parents calling 911. And it may just been where I grew up. I swear it was smoke signals.
Segueing from like having the tools to prepare, how can individuals support survivors of sexual assault during this month?
Yeah, so ZaKiya, you had a really good point that a lot of survivors do blame themselves. And so I regularly talk about the two most important things survivors can hear are, it wasn't your fault, and I believe you. Because, I mean, we've seen really public trials of folks who have had the courage to come forward and name that somebody with power has hurt them, and we see how many times they're not believed.
Yeah, why did they wait so long? I'm like, why would you say that? Like,
and then survivors hear that, right? And they know that people aren't going to believe them. So if you are a safe person and you can tell the person in your life that you believe them, it goes such a long way. We have a 24/7 crisis line. So we would welcome folks who have been impacted in any way from sexual violence to call us. I am so terrible with numbers, so I did write it down. It's 828-255-7576. And that means also if someone in your life has experienced sexual violence and you are feeling pain, because you will, because it's painful if somebody in your life has experienced sexual violence, you can call us too. And we have advocates available 24/7. And we are available at the Buncombe County Family Justice Center Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. For walk-ins, you can make an appointment, and we're here to just walk alongside folks. We're not here to rescue anyone. Survivors have the power within them to help themselves. We're just here to provide options and talk about what the system looks like and what healing can look like. We also do have free trauma-focused short-term therapy. And so if anyone has experienced sexual violence and is ready to talk about it, that service is available as well.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question for both of you all. How does the initiatives of Public Safety Telecommunicator Week and Sexual Assault Awareness Month intersect?
Where it intersects at for us is that a lot of time those first reports will come through us, or some other report might lead to that as well. So, so for us having the training, as you mentioned, having being compassionate to callers when they're coming in. No one calls 911 because they're having a good day. And just being that point where you don't feel like you made a wrong decision reporting this, and not being we talked about this a little before, but there's a lot of people in public safety as well who got to public safety because they've experienced some type of assault, and this is their way of trying to heal back through that. So a lot of people will be able to walk you through the system because they might have firsthand knowledge of the system. So us being compassionate and taking the proper information and sending the proper resources their way. It's one way we have an intersection there.
We're so grateful to work with Alex and his team because we know that if folks are calling 911, that's that first point that they're sharing something bad just happened to me. And that is such a crucial part, because if the person that answers that call doesn't believe them or is not compassionate, the likelihood they're going to move forward and talk to a law enforcement officer or talk to somebody else is really limited, right? They're more likely to shove it back inside and say, I'm going to pretend this didn't happen. And so our dispatchers are so important. We're so grateful that they take it so seriously, that they show up as compassionate, trauma-informed individuals, because it makes a huge difference for survivors that report.
And so I had a next question around, what steps can an individual take to ensure that they are utilizing emergency services appropriately?
Basically, try to inform yourself, right? Try to look at it and gain some knowledge. And part of that is on our side. We have to go to the community and tell them what we do. But to try to understand some of the public service that we do is go places and tell them, hey, this is when you should call 911 and this is when you should not call 911. 911 is for life-threatening situations, but when in doubt, call 911, please. If you don't know, just probably a 911 call, but just know the difference.
And so, like fires, 911, a fire in your yard.
Might still be a 911 call, depending on the situation. But how we kind of break it down is like, hey, did you stub your toe?
Yeah.
That's maybe not a 911 call. Someone's trying to get into your house, definitely a 911 call. Might be a little extreme, and we try to tailor it to different age groups.
Yeah.
When you're young, you might need to know 911, but as you get older, you get a phone, hey, when you call 911 and you hang up, we know where you're at. Yeah. So maybe don't play on your phone like that.
Well, spring has sprung, and so my thing is, possum in your house.
Sure.
No 911.
Depends.
Bear in your house.
Bear in your house. No.
Definitely no. I just want to get that out there for the folks, because possums usually don't have rabies.
Sure.
They're actually very great animals. I'm just want to let people know, critters do get in your house, and that is a non-911 call unless it is Winnie the Pooh. They came in. That is 911, but they can call animal services,
Can
right?
call animal services.
Yeah.
The fun fact about that is that we take calls for animal services.
Oh my God! so it is 911.
So it could be if it's threatening your life. If that possum is just a really aggressive possum threatening your life,
They all hiss. So you have to figure out what level of hiss station they're in. So how can our community promote awareness and prevention of sexual violence beyond sexual violence? Did you ask that question? Why do I feel like I've already said this in my head? Prevention of sexual violence beyond sexual assault awareness month.
You were just so excited to ask it.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to have folks subscribe to our newsletter. That's a really good way to stay in touch with our voice and the things that are going on in the community to talk about sexual violence and prevent it. And so you can sign up for that through our website or follow us on social media. We do community presentations now and then, so you'll get updates from our social media or our newsletter. You can also support organizations like Our Voice or other organizations in town that are doing anti-violence work. We have the peace team that's also doing community anti-violence work. That's a really cool initiative. And so that support goes a long way as well. We also are celebrating our 50th birthday. And so we have a party coming up that we'd love to invite folks to. It's on April 27th at Plebe in the River Arts District from 6 to 9. And we're celebrating just the resilience over the last 50 years of survivors. So we'd love to have the community come celebrate with us.
Oh yeah, get us some information. We'll send it out as well.
Great.
Okay, so if I am a survivor and I call Our Voice, what should I expect to happen?
Yeah, it depends on what you're calling about. So sometimes folks are calling because they just need that emotional support. And we are here to sit with you on the phone, however long you need, talk about, just be a safe person to say that makes sense, right? Validate those feelings. And then also maybe do some grounding exercises if you're feeling really escalated. To also just normalize flashbacks are normal, and here's why, right? Here's how the brain's having a hard time putting that traumatic memory back into the narrative of your life. And then to also be able to be that person that is talking about when did the assault happen, what are your options available based on when that assault happened. So important things for listeners to know, because hopefully you never need this information, but if you do, it's good to know. To get a forensic exam after a sexual assault is 120 hours, so that's about 5 days. To get HIV prophylaxis, which if you don't know the person that assaulted you or you don't know their HIV status, is usually an important thing. That's a 72-hour window. So that's the shortest window. We're able to make sure you get connected with SANE nurses, or you can go to Mission ER and they can also make sure that you get the care that you need.
I also got another question around, we know the individual who may have been assaulted may be hesitant. So, but a lot of times you share things with your friends or your loved ones. What can that friend or loved one do for that individual?
Yeah, so again, that I believe you and it wasn't your fault, first thing. You know, depending on your comfort, there are some people who are like, I don't talk about hard things or I don't talk about feelings. And so that person might just want to hand them our phone number. We're happy to talk to them. They might be able to hang in there with those tough feelings longer. They could drive them to the Family Justice Center if the survivor wants to, right? So we know that sexual violence is all about power and control being taken away. And the most important thing that folks need to do if they're supporting a survivor is make sure that they are in control and that they get to make choices. That's the most healing thing. But we know that in those, especially for our kiddos that have been assaulted, those early folks that talk to them about it, when they first disclose, when they first tell their story, if they respond in a supportive, believing way, the likelihood that they're going to find healing early is so much greater.
And I think people also need to understand is that survivors will want to press charges and then say no. They will go back and forth, and that is absolutely normal because you want justice, but justice is also a scary process.
Absolutely, and you are having to tell your story, and if you get all the way to court, you are going to have a defense attorney that's going to talk and cross-examine you if you testify, right? It is not an easy process, and the courage that it takes to report is immense, and we're here to walk alongside folks if they decide that that's what they want to do.
Sure.
And I heard you. I'm sorry.
You
can go ahead.
There's also, like, outside of all the scenarios she's gave, there's also anonymous ways to report these events as well.
Absolutely.
Crime Stoppers is a perfect, you don't have to give any information, just that you know this happened, you know, and sometimes it's the first step in letting things come to light, and you might have to do it a couple times, and that's fine. You call as many times as you need to, but there are just a number of different ways to.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, another thing that anonymous reporting is you can get a forensic exam and not report. And so why that's important is that 120-hour window, right? And so if you are like, this feels really big and scary, but I know that if I wait too long, I can't do this exam, you can get that exam. They put it in a box, doesn't have your identifying information on the outside, and you can wait and decide later. You can let your brain get back online and you can make a decision that's the right.
But there are some cases where you're mandatory to report.
That's a very good point. Under 18, kiddos don't get to decide. But what they do get to decide is what parts of the exam they get to assent to. Because again, their body, right? That's so important. If you've lost control, you get to decide what happens to your body later. You might not get to decide about the reporting, because we know that teenagers' brains are still developing. And so we want to be as big advocates as we can for teenagers and their parents, who, by the way, are going to have very big feelings, because as a parent, that is every parent's worst fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're there to support those folks too.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 4 minutes left, and we are really, we could do a whole series on this, and we should look into that one day, just of how we support our survivors and our folks that support our survivors. You know, I guess you would call those supporter advocates support.
Yeah.
So, can you all leave us with one thing you want our audience to remember before we go? Alex, you can go ahead and start.
Sure. I would just lean back into understanding. I'm always trying to bring light to what 911 does. In my short stint at 911, I worked with the FBI, I worked with the Secret Service, I worked with Mexican law enforcement, Interpol. I've done so many things. I just came in thinking I was going to talk on the radio and eat donuts, you know, but it's such a rewarding career. There's so many different opportunities that we're trying to bring to this career so people come and stay and not use it as a jumping point to go into something else in public safety. And just to think about your 911 dispatchers, there's a movement going through nationwide, I think, right now, but specifically in North Carolina, where we're trying to get 911 recognized as first responders, because right now we're classified as secretaries. Yeah, nationwide.
Wow.
So if you see anything come up on a voting docket, please support that initiative, and just think about, you know, your first responders, your first point of contact.
Laural, is there anything you want to add?
Not particularly, just grateful for the opportunity to be here with y'all today.
Thank you. Rita?
Yeah, I think that we know that there's a lot of survivors in our community that haven't accessed services, and some of those folks are doing great and don't need any help because they have people in their community that are supporting them. But for anyone that's listening or that knows somebody that's in pain from sexual violence or human trafficking, because we also serve trafficking survivors, that hasn't accessed services, I just want folks to know that we are here for you. I think sometimes folks maybe think that it wasn't bad enough or whatever else, but our voice is here to serve all folks who have been affected by sexual violence and human trafficking.
And I'd just like to add, we know there's a lot of awareness going on, but we also want to highlight another awareness month that's occurring. Every child deserves a safe environment to grow up in. It takes us to ensure families are supported. April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, a time to connect families, communities, prevention advocates, and supporters to raise awareness on issues regarding child abuse and highlight the idea that everyone in the community plays a role in preventing child abuse. This month, Buncombe County's Government and Mountain Child Advocacy Center will host engagement opportunities and provide educational information through its website and social media platforms, including blue light displays, stewards of children training, kids story time, and more. Visit buncombecounty.org to learn more.
All right, that was Professor Jones. And I am going to wrap us up. As we know that, but they always say April showers bring May flowers. Well, with April brings awareness. So often we have been told to stuff those feelings back, that it happens to a lot of folks. And my thing is, it can happen to a lot of folks every day, but right now we need to focus on you, because you're the one who's speaking out. If you ever need help or you're experiencing something that doesn't feel right, call your local agencies and see how you can get help. I think we don't understand that trauma, no matter how it happens, close family, friend, relative, or stranger, it all leaves scars. Some scars, the ones that are the worst, are the ones we can't see. And those are the ones that a lot of times as survivors you all hold hostage because they're safe with you, because when you let them out, then it becomes a real reality. So what I want to tell everyone out there is that it is okay to tell someone. It is okay that you are taking the first step. It is okay if you start to tell and you stop. It is a process. When a storm comes through a neighborhood, it is a huge impact. And the next day we all get up and we try to assess all that happens. And even though we may rebuild, there are some things that are never going to be the same. We can help you rebuild, and though it will never be the same, you will have a brighter outlook and you will be able to help others who come along. That's from me to you, and you've been tapped in.
Thank you for listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower, here on WRES 100.7 FM in Nashville. Learn more about today's topics at buncombecounty.org. Otherwise, stay tuned for more great episodes coming up.